Lovely. Hello everyone, we're just admitting everyone in and then we'll start the talk today. So if you can just make sure all your audio and your video is remained off, please. Lovely. Okay. So hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for Mia Sylvia's talk on natural dyeing techniques and her creative career journey. My name is Annabelle Osborne and I work for the NICO project with Norwich University of the Arts. The NICO and Take Your Place project works with universities across East Anglia, and in my role I support students from Year 9 upwards who are studying any creative subject. My colleague Emma Jones is also online throughout this session today to make sure it runs as smoothly as possible. So I'll be handing very shortly to Mia, who will be taking us through, like I said, a little bit of a look on her colour samples and also her education and career journey. But just before we start, we just have a couple of house rules. So like I said before, we'd be grateful if you could please ensure that your audio and video remains muted for the duration of the session. Mia will be presenting for around 30 minutes, and then following this, we'll look to answer as many of your questions as possible. So please send your questions to us via the chat function, and then we'll try to answer, like I said, as many as possible, and you can find this on your lower toolbar. And we aim to finish around 5:45 today. If we have any technical problems or someone's internet drops out, we'll try to reconnect for around 5 minutes before cancelling the session. Our apologies in advance if this happens, but we will be recording this, so please don't worry as this will be available to you afterwards. Lastly, if you see or hear anything inappropriate, or if you have any questions or concerns about the session or even your situation at home, please don't hesitate to message me privately as I'll be on hand to help and assist you. So that's it from me at the moment, and I will hand over to Mia and we'll get going with today's session.
Thank you, Annabelle, and hello everyone that's joined in for the talk today. Before I go through a bit more about myself, I'm going to show you examples of some colours I've made in the studio and what ingredients have been used to sort of dye with these. So some of the colours that I create in the studio, they're all made with plants, flowers, food waste, and pigments and scrap metals that I've salvaged from beaches and different scrapyards. So a lot of the colours have been used, so I foraged them from local sort of areas, gardens, you can get them from kitchen cupboards. There's some colours here that I'll show you in a book that I bought. So this is something that I designed throughout uni, and there's some colours here which you can see. And these yellow colours have been created using white onion skins. So this is an ingredient that you can find in your kitchen. Eat all the onion, and then afterwards you can use the onion skins and create a dye with them. So the way I've created that dye, which is the block colour of yellow, has been made by boiling the onion skins, and that we've got a gorgeous gold colour.
Well,
So some others that are...
Sorry, if I can just interrupt you. We can't see you at the moment because your camera's kind of cut off. I didn't know whether maybe if you stop sharing the presentation, so we can have you as a spotlight, maybe we might be able to see those, if you can show us those colours again, because unfortunately some people we haven't been able to see them.
Yeah, definitely. Let me... How's that? Okay.
That's better.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Cool. So the yellow colour that I was just talking about with the onion skins is here. It's a gorgeous golden colour, and each spool on this book is a different type of fabric that I've experimented with. So all the fabrics are either organic, or I've gotten them from old sort of t-shirts or bed linen, or they've sort of been repurposed from places like eBay and other places that sell like fabrics that would have gone to waste. So another colour, which is actually a personal favourite of mine, is this blush pink. And the reason why it is an absolute favourite is because the ingredient that is used to create this lovely colour is avocado skins. So it's really unusual, and it also just sort of shows how sort of incredible Mother Nature can be. So you get to eat all the goodness inside, put some avocado on toast or have it in salad, and then afterwards you get to wash up the skins and even keep the pips inside, and you can use those to create these lovely sort of pinky colours, which are really popular, and you can get different deep sort of coloured pinks depending on how long you boil it for. And I just love that, because you just wouldn't think that a green avocado would make such a lovely pink colour. So another colour here that I thought I'd show you all is these sort of greys, and always sort of like going down into navy sort of indigo blue, and being created using black turtle beans. So that's another type of food source that you can sort of have in a curry. But you can also just soak them in cold water and leave them overnight, and they produce these really, really dark blues that you can leave the fabric in. And the longer you leave the fabric in, the darker the blue will go, which is also really nice. The darkest blue here in that tiny little square, that one's actually been created using indigo, which is a Japanese plant, and they use that plant to pretty much dye all of the sort of blue denim jeans, until they started using chemical dyes, which was from like the 80s onwards. But you still get a lot of companies that still use indigo, and it's a green leaf plant, which is just really cool that a green plant makes blue dye for your jeans. And then another one that I've got here is some really deep dark greens, and these have been made using an ingredient called chlorophyll. So out of a lot of the ingredients I use, this one sounds the most chemically. It's actually, in fact, one of the most natural ones out of all of the ingredients. So chlorophyll, it's the pigment that actually makes plants green. So the thing that makes the leaves green, the stems of flowers, everything that you see green in Mother Nature has got this pigment of chlorophyll in it. And you can buy it as the powder form, and then you use that to dye fabric with. And it smells like a forest floor. It's absolutely amazing. So I thought I'd also show you some examples of my design process behind these colours. So this is another sort of workbook where I sort of create different designs inside of. And here you'll see I've made like a fabric collage out of all the different scraps and samples that I've dyed with natural dyes. So you can see some pinks in there, some browns, some creams, and then like a marbled coloured one, which has been dyed using rusted metal. And this little sample swatch on the side is my inspiration for what I would design, and something that could be used as a final product after that is something else. So it's been the exact same principle, where I put together all of the bits of fabric like in the collage, and then I've used that to stitch into and patchwork and then make a little pencil case out of it. And that is a few examples of some of the different colours and what I can sort of do with those sort of dyes. So I'm just going to change my screen onto the presentation, and I'll show you some of my other pieces of work.
Lovely, that's great. Thank you, Mia. Hopefully we'll still be able to hear you all right, because I'm just noticing you're cracking up a little bit with your internet connection. So if I interrupt and we can't hear, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
But that's right. But like I said, thank you for that introduction and like seeing your colour samples. So it'll be great to see the presentation and see what you're going to take us through.
So, hello, I am Mia, and I am a sustainable textiles designer, and I specialise in repurposing textiles and garments that would have been destined for landfill or that are ethically sourced, which means that they're good for the planet. And I use these items and I dye them with natural pigments that I've made and cooked up in the studio. Sorry, it's not letting me go. There we go. Cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my background and my creative journey. So I'm going to start right from the beginning, which is my education, and where of what I did throughout my GCSEs, my A levels, and with my university. So at school, I studied for GCSEs. I did music, art, drama, and religious studies. So I wanted to do that were all creative, and then the studies on the side was a bit of an extra thing. And the reason why I took that was because I wanted to learn how to debate more and talk to people about backgrounds and cultures, and it really helped me sort of.
Hi Mia, sorry, we cannot hear you. Oh no, she's gone. Okay, sorry everyone. Her internet connection seems to be quite unstable. So if you can, oh, I can see you again.
Hey,
Hello.
that was strange. All right, hello.
Hi, your connection's very unstable.
Oh.
I want.
Should I share my screen and see if it?
Yeah, if you do that again, and then maybe if you turn off your, sometimes if you turn off your camera, it might be a little bit clearer. Like I can stay on camera as long as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you want me to try that?
Yeah, if you can do that and see if that's a bit better. Thank you.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we just don't have the presentation. Oh yeah, you just should just be loading.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, like these things can't be helped.
How far did I get until I cut off?
No, you weren't in very far. So if you just want to start, I say back from the start of that slide, that would be great.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a bit about my educational background and where I sort of started and the courses that I took and where I progressed to during uni. So to begin with, for GCSEs, apart from the compulsory ones like English and science, I studied music, art, drama, and religious studies. And the RS was a little bit more random compared to the just creative topics. And the reason why I took this was because I wanted to sort of learn more about different cultures and different ways that I could sort of debate and talk with other people about different topics. Alongside that, when I did music, art, and drama, I've always had creativity sort of run through me, and not necessarily been as academic. So I've always preferred more creative subjects. When I first sort of did this, I did have a few people that sort of questioned whether that was the right thing to do. Where I should have, something else would have sort of balanced it out with being more academic. Now that I look back on it, I'm still really pleased with the choices that I made. I really enjoyed expressing myself in drama, and music has always been a passion of mine. But towards the end of sort of my GCSEs, I realised that sort of art and English and photography were topics that I really enjoyed. And I then used this sort of opinion of like what I wanted to do to sort of inform what I was going to do for my A levels. So after I finished my GCSEs, I was contemplating whether to stay at my school and do my A levels there or go to college and there. The majority of all of my friends actually stayed at the school doing a lot of them looked more sort of academic subjects, and that's the sort of route they wanted to go down. One of my friends, she decided to go to a college, and when she was talking about it, I was a bit more intrigued, and I kind of wanted to know what it would be like to sort of go on from school and learn at a different sort of place and meet new teachers. So I decided to enroll at the college, and my first week I did A levels. The topics that I chose were English, media, photography, and digital design. And the reason why I chose these topics was because I wanted to be a photojournalist. So I used to really love watching, well, I still do love watching David Attenborough. And each time I'd watch it, I'd really want to sort of have that kind of job role where I was traveling the world, looking at rare pieces of wildlife and capturing that. That was the goal when I first went to college. Within the first week, I went all my classes, I got to the curriculum was, and I decided that it just didn't feel right for me, and the topics that I had chosen, it just I just felt it that it didn't really coincide with what I was enjoying for my GCSEs, which was music and drama. They were like my top subjects. So what I decided to do, I spoke to my friend that went to the college, and she had taken up another course, which was the art diploma. She explained to me what she'd been doing in her first week and what the curriculum would be for the rest of the year. I then made a decision to change courses, which was allowed, and they always let you do that. So I think that's quite important. Like, if you choose levels, that you can always potentially speak to your teachers, and if it's maybe not gelling, then you can switch to a course or find something that's more suitable for you if it doesn't feel right. And I was really lucky that I had a lot of teachers, and they let me switch courses, and then I went to the art diploma, which is still of, I think, 3 A levels. So the first year of the art diploma, you focus on all different art mediums. So I did photography, painting, drawing, sculpture, textiles, digital design, and woodwork. That first year, you then sort of decide which sort of medium was your most favourite. In my case, that was textiles. So I then spent my second year focusing just on textiles, and I looked into embroidery and creating knitting sort of like patterns and looking at sort of the world. So after studying textiles throughout my second year of college, I was then invited to go to university, and the college chose NUA, which was Norwich University of the Arts. I decided to go on the open day and see what I sort of thought of the courses. I hadn't really sort of thought that university was going to be a choice for me, but after I visited the uni, I decided that I really loved the course, and the facilities were really nice. And it seemed like a place where I sort of spend more time getting creative, getting to expand my knowledge within the sort of textile world. So I went for my interview for the uni and got into for textile design. Within my first year of uni, we did something similar to my college course, which was you look at all different types of mediums, and in this case it was textiles. So we did weaving, screen printing, digital design, illustrations, and everything that was sort of to do with the sort of fabric manipulation as well, and dyeing fabrics too, which was when I discovered the avenue that I wanted to go down. So during my first year, I was looking at the projects that we were given, and I was experimenting with all the different sort of choices they were giving us. So I was looking at weaving, I was looking at fabrics, I was screen printing. And then after the first year, I decided that I really loved screen printing and dyeing fabrics. So for my second year of uni, I spent the entire time just colour sampling. They used to make a point of having like a final product. So what I used to get quite fixated on was that a final product to be like an actual physical thing that you actually sell or you could show to someone that would then go in the shop maybe. What I learned about my second year, the actual final piece was samples in themselves, and it was the whole process of learning about creating colour with different dyes, whether they were sort of natural or acid dyes. So that's what sort of led me into this world. When we were sort of using acid dyes at uni, I decided to sort of learn different colour techniques and just create a catalogue of books that were just filled with samples with the piece I handed in for my sort of second year. After my second year, I was looking to understand all of the colour samples into something, and how I could upcycle pieces of fabric or garments. So I was really looking to things that I actually enjoyed that would be even more fun. So growing up, I've always been encouraged to upcycle. Went to charity shops with my mum all the time, and we get pieces of furniture and we'd sort of decorate them to look really nice. I've always loved festivals and going outdoors and just sort of going on long walks and hiking. And then at the end, you can see on this slide, it says fashion and interiors. So they've always been two interests of mine. And during uni, we were asked to focus on fashion or interiors. And I used to find it quite hard with knowing what designer I was and which category I fit into. And now that I've graduated and I've sort of gone on, I've decided that I still really like both of them, and they still sort of fit in really well with just my personality, and I think it will always be something I'll be experimenting with. So here you can see some of my design process behind the collections that I decided to make for my final degree show at uni. Getting inspiration from the outdoors and my different passions, going to festivals, seeing different trucks, and sort of looking at these different products. The top row of images, I got inspired by rust and dyeing fabrics with rust and scrap metals, and experimenting with making curtains for people, and dyeing tops and selling them at festivals. And the picture you see on the top row, I was asked to do an exhibition with the uni, to volunteer and get my work out there. And one of my pieces got seen by a wedding photographer, who then decided that they really liked my work and wanted to see if I would be up for joining in on a photo shoot. So images on the bottom row are taken by the photographer that I met at that exhibition, and all of the garments that the model is wearing are vintage dresses that I've got from charity shops or have been donated, and I upcycle them using the processes that I learned throughout my second and third year. I then decided to create more collections after I graduated, because I really enjoyed the whole process of putting colours together and transforming a garment that would have otherwise been left in an attic. I then went on to do my final collection, and while I was doing this, looking back on these images, I can really see that it was the whole process behind the photo shoot that I really enjoyed. So you can see in these top rows of images the fabric design behind the models, the set design is sort of put up together. So that's how I decided that this must be something that I really love doing, working on photo shoots, creating sets, and these bottom row of images are designed at events that now have translated into doing more of the interior side of things than when I was doing the fashion. So now it's part of the work life after my sort of educational sort of time throughout my GCSEs, A levels, and uni. Okay, so are we skipping a slide or are we carrying on?
Sorry, you cut out a bit. What did you just say?
I might. I was just wondering, I don't know if you were wanted me to pause on this slide.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, thank you. But yeah, like what I wanted to say was it's just been really great to hear like your education and your journey, and it'll be really interesting to hear a bit about on this slide the different work that you're doing, and particularly here, like it says about the aircraft industry. So how can you also tell us like how do each of those kind of relate to your areas of expertise, although it might not be completely directly what you're doing like in your own personal business? It would be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, during school, college and uni, I always had a part-time job. I've like income and sort of supporting myself with buying different materials throughout sort of making things. And so one of my first sort of jobs was just at Domino's making pizza, which is creative somewhat because you get to decorate them. So that's where I kind of started throughout college. I was working there. And then after that, I decided throughout uni I wanted to work in a care home and become a dementia specialist. And this really informed a lot of the projects that I did at university. In the second year, we had a project that was called Wellbeing, and we had to sort of choose a different topic that we thought would be interesting and explore that through textiles. Because I was working in a care home, I thought that well-being was really important, and I already ran some workshops with the elderly residents that included arranging. I wanted to sort of figure out how I could use textiles to still teach and help people with different sort of struggles that they're dealing with. And I decided through doing my colour experimentation, natural dyeing was not only non-toxic, but it's really nice sensory thing to learn, because you can touch all of the natural ingredients, and they're really beneficial for if they go on skin, and they smell amazing. The whole experience would be really lovely to sort of teach in care homes, and that's the route I went down with learning about natural dyes and how that project influenced what I was doing in my work life as well. So after working in care homes, I did that for about 3 or 4 years during and after uni. I then graduated and decided that I wanted to sort of have a career change and look at something that would also help me with my textile career. So I was looking online and I found an advertisement for a sewing machinist, and that's the part of being the aircraft engineer now. I work in a workshop for an aviation company where they repair different parts of the aeroplane. And my little workshop make things and I repair things that are all textile based that you'll see on the plane. So whether that be from like seat covers, curtains, seat belts, and cargo nets, which are bits that sort of go underneath the plane, made of quite heavy duty fabric. And this has really influenced what I'm still doing, because I work on a sewing machine every day. I get to design and pattern cut for different pieces that I'm working on, and it's still in the sort of textile world. I find it quite interesting because it's the complete opposite for what I do with natural dyeing, which is very delicate and pretty and organic fabrics, whereas the aviation side of things is very industrial, quite dirty. I get to use tools during the day, which is quite fun. But it's been a massive learning curve to still see which avenue that textiles can sort of take you down. So during my time at uni and working, I also decided to get myself out there and work at festivals, markets, exhibitions, help out on photo shoots and volunteer at trade shows. And working on these have been completely valuable to where I am now and the things that I design. So, let me just go back. So during these times, I would meet different people and sort of experiment with most popular I was trying to sell. It was at a festival or a market, or exhibiting my work, just sort of seeing what generated the most curiosity from people. And that really helped with me understanding what was most popular within my work, with the things that I was designing with fabrics and textiles. I then decided, while doing all of the events, that it was the process of actually talking to people about what I was doing and how I was doing it that made it that more exciting and interesting, and led me into looking at teaching. So I was to festivals and at market stalls, and I would run workshops, actually begun by just workshops with my friends in our gardens. And I learned so much through teaching other people about different techniques and processes and things that people would really enjoy, and what they would want to learn about. So these are some pictures of places that I've been. I've taught in different places internationally and met people all over. And I've really started to learn that the sort of core values of what I enjoy is meeting other people and talking to them about different processes with textiles, how they can make different colours using plants and flowers. And here is some work that I've recently done. So alongside the festivals and exhibitions, I work with events. So here is some massive fabric backdrops that I made using the processes that I'd learnt at uni. So each piece of fabric has been hand dyed using a variety of plants and flowers, different bits of food waste, and they've been used to showcase the venue, which, fun fact, was actually the venue for Great British Sewing Bee this Christmas, which was fun. And these have been used as like a backdrop for a wedding ceremony, just to showcase how big the venue is and how you can make it look quite romantic with the fabric sort of hanging from ceilings. Along my journey of working at festivals and different events and within weddings and trade shows, I've learned a lot about talking about my work and how sustainability is really important within the textile world, and how I can use my creative medium as a talking point to start sparking positive change. Um, and it's also been really important to learn about the diversity within the sort of, not just the textile, but like the wedding world as well, and how we can sort of be more inclusive and talk to other people and open up conversations through our creative means. So I think it's quite nice to have these stories behind our work about how we can inspire and educate. A quote that I like to tell myself is that no one's going to know who you are unless you tell them. So this is just me coming back on, you know, going to craft fairs, festivals, exhibitions and trade shows. No one asked me to do those. I decided to apply for them. Some people didn't get me, some people just never replied to my emails, some people said no. But a lot of people started saying yes, and I started getting my name out there. And while I was doing this, I was meeting people. So I think it's really important to start talking with people and talking about what you do and who you are, because you never know who's going to be in the room. And that's a lot of how I've generated new work, is through talking to other people.
That's great. And picking up on those last points, it sounds like it's really interesting how sustainability is so key to your work on ethos. So I think in the next slides, like if you can talk about how, like you say, with your networking and if you'll collaborate with other partners, that would be really interesting to hear.
Definitely. So in here, I've listed what I've just been talking about, but I just want to elaborate it on a little bit more. So on the left, with industry events, I started working on photo shoots to showcase my work and getting a team of people together to talk about our work. In this picture here on the left is me and a florist called Hazel. I decided to do some work together. That generates not only a relationship with someone, that you become friends and you also respect each other's creative mediums. You then get along so much that you can't stop talking about each other to other people, and that then generates a lovely network of sharing people's ideas and recommending people as well. In the centre, I've put volunteering. So a lot of the work shows that I started going to, I actually volunteered and sold tickets at the stands. So I decided that would be a good way for me to get my sort of foot in the door without really cutting to having a whole stand on my own without knowing sort of what was involved. And by doing that, I met different industry experts. I got to talk to them about what they did and what might not or did work for them in their businesses. And that's been really valuable, and I've made a lot of my now close industry friends through this. On the site, I've put workshops. So alongside teaching, I also go to workshops myself to learn about new different creative practices. And I think this is a really lovely way to meet people that have similar interests to you, and ways that you can sort of just carry on learning more after your sort of education. Well, I was going to say finishes, but I don't think it ever finishes. I always want to learn new things, and it's good to meet people along the way. So alongside doing this, I became friends with a lovely lady called Amy, who runs Anthology Vintage Hire. And I met her through volunteering at shows, working on photo shoots together. And what her company basically does is they rent out vintage furniture for events. We still have very similar ethoses together, with them sort of using just vintage furniture and hiring it out. It means that people aren't buying into more products and that they can just hire them for their events and then give them back. We then wanted to sort of think, how could we benefit from what each other are doing? And because I love designing and making a space look impactful using textiles, and we enjoyed that on photo shoots, I then decided that we would join forces, and I am now part of their team as their in-house stylist. So I speak to different couples for events that might be getting married, and I pick all the bits that I think would be nice for what their taste is, and then I design their wedding for them and then style it to look how they would want it to look at their venue, using all the pieces from Empire. Doing this has generated lots more work in the events industry, working for different couples, different festivals, and like making venues like market themselves to be better, to showcase the people that might be interested in sort of using that venue for themselves. And this is all through just making that one connection with that one person. So that's how I really want to express how important it is to sort of get yourself out there into the people, because you never know where it's going to end. And through doing this, working on photo shoots and editorials has been another way for me to meet other people in the industry. So from these images alone, which has been a recent project I've worked on, you've got the venue, the model, the makeup artist, the hairstylist, the dress provider, people that rent out the crockery, buses, the candleware. I've styled and provided the tape runners, backdrops, and then you have people that have taken the pictures. There's a videographer. So this is a whole team of people that can sometimes even take the form of like 15-20 people to work on just one photo shoot. And this is a really great way to network with other people in the same industry. So I think it's quite good to look at what industry you want to go in and figure out how you can start conversations with these people. And for this, I now have a list of different services that I offer. I used to find it really hard to put in one sentence what I do, and I think that's okay. I think I'm going to continue to want to learn and grow and do different things within my business. And that's sort of where I've sort of decided I'm going to be now, is just having a string to many bows. So I just wanted to say thank you for listening to me chatting away. You're welcome to say hello if you have any questions as well after the presentation, and give me a cheeky follow if you like. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, and then we can start some questions if you like.
Yeah, we've got some questions through. So that's great. So thank you for taking us through that. That's really interesting to hear. So what I'll do is I'll start firing the questions away, if that's all right, Mia. Yep. So which natural dye / colour have you found the most difficult to achieve?
That is a good one. So funnily, the green colours I showed at the beginning, green is notoriously the most natural colour. It's trees, it's forests. It's actually one of the hardest colours to dye with and to also keep. So although those greens are super lovely, they'd be good for a piece of artwork, but if I was to dye a t-shirt that colour, it wouldn't be very colour fast, which means that the colour doesn't stay as long. So green has been something that I've struggled with. Like the very light spectrum, like a sage colour, is perfect. You can use that and you can dye whatever you like with that. But the really deep emerald greens, I actually haven't achieved successfully. Yeah.
Okay,
I'd
that's
say that's
good.
the hardest.
Yeah, it sounds like you always have to keep learning. So hopefully you'll achieve that colour.
Yeah, watch out.
Yeah. So if you were recommending a colour to go with that is a winner every time, what colour would that be?
I would say turmeric, which produces a different spectrum of yellows. You can get really pale yellow to a really almost orange, deep yellow, depending on how much you use and with you boiling the water. And yellow, yeah, it's always a winner with turmeric. But just make sure you wear gloves if you're going to be doing it in the kitchen, because it just gets absolutely everywhere, because it does just stain everything.
Cool, thank you. Did you also learn technical skills such as pattern making and cutting? So I assume this is maybe during your degree or whether that's in your work.
So during uni, we didn't learn pattern cutting, because that was more fashion based, whereas we were doing more textiles, so it was just looking at the actual processes with the fabrics. With my aviation job in the aircraft, that has now allowed me to learn different pattern cutting techniques. That's a tongue twister. And that's how I've now learned how to use these different skills, which I now use if I want to make a clothing or garment or something.
Thank you. And we've had a couple of questions about fixing the dye. So what works best with natural dyes as a dye fixer?
So there's quite a few popular ones that you can use. The most popular, which you'll find in a lot of books that talk about natural dye, is soya milk. I personally don't use soya milk, and I don't recommend it either, because it's not very sustainable, and the way that they harvest it isn't as good. And I don't really, if you're buying a whole carton of soya milk to then rinse in fabric, it will then also just end up being quite wasteful and quite expensive. So different ingredients that I use that I'll always recommend. The most popular one that I use is called alum. It's a natural rock salt which can be used for making deodorant, making shampoo, conditioners, and it comes in like I don't know if I've got. It comes in like a big sort of clear crystal form, and it's yeah, completely clear. And you can either buy it like that or in a powder, and you just dissolve it into the water, and you can buckets of this water and then just put your fabric in. Some other popular ones are pomegranate skins. So you can boil those, and then what it's called is tannins. And the tannins is, you know, when you make a cup of tea and sometimes it's got that kind of oil slicky kind of on top of it. That's a tannin, and that's really good to fix fabric with, and pomegranate skins are filled with those. And then a really old historical mordant, which is very popular and actually really popular in Norwich back in the day. It's quite gross and I've never done it, but it is human urine. And what they would do in Norwich, they had, they're really famous for their red shawls, which have been dyed using natural colours and natural pigments. And they would have competitions where they would collect urine from all the pubs and see whose urine from which pub could make the strongest red dye in the fabric. So that's a really old traditional technique. And I guess it's free, but I haven't tried it, so I don't know if it's good.
Fair enough. So that's quite a good historical fact, actually. I didn't know that. So if people were going to look at alum, where would they be able to buy that from?
So you can get it from like organic shops, if they're selling it as like a deodorant. The places where I get it from though, there's a company called Wild Colours. And they sell different pigments of natural dyes, different mordants and fixers. You can also buy alum in powder form from Amazon, which can be used. I think people buy it in bulk to make deodorant. Yeah, so it's ALUM, alum.
Lovely, thank you. So
yeah.
just a few more questions. So just carrying on with the fixative like mordant stuff, it says someone's asked what would you use specifically with the green, as obviously that's quite a different colour, a difficult colour like you were saying.
So what would I do with the green?
What fixative mordant would you use? But is that typically like what you were saying, you tend to use the alum?
Yeah. So for green, I recommend using alum. It's the most sort of reliable, And when you're always using natural dyes, I would always recommend just using natural fabrics. So your cottons, wool, silk, hemp, viscose. These fabrics are paired beautifully with natural sort of dyes. If you try and do it on a polyester, it's not going to work as well, and it's just going to fade out. So make sure that you've got those fabrics first. And yeah, I'd recommend using alum if you want to create greens.
Lovely, that's great. And I've just got 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. So how exactly did you use metal to dye fabric? They said they would really love to try it and they're currently studying textiles at A-level.
Cool. So what I've done, so I've gotten bits of rusty metal from sheds or scrapyards or bits that I found at the beach. You can just get, so the thing with rust dyeing actually, I kind of going to go back on what I just said, because rust dyeing is so strong, you can use it with any fabric. So you can use it with polyesters. That's the only natural dye that I would recommend you can use with a polyester if you wanted to. So there's different ways you can do it, but one of the most popular ways is just laying the pieces of metal flat on top of the fabric, and then rolling that up and then tying that up with some string, so you're binding it together. If you want it to sort of process a bit quicker, I would dip the fabric in some water and vinegar, and then you can go back and spray some vinegar on top of it. I've noticed a few people with rust dyeing, they'll leave the fabric for about 2 days, but I recommend, if you want to get the best results, I use it for up to 4 weeks. Some of the dresses that you saw of my design work, one of those dresses, I'd actually left it for 6 months. So the longer you leave it, the more beautiful it's going to be, and it's just going to bring out those colours even better. But it depends. If you're doing a course and you've got a deadline, just make sure you're planning, I guess. But yeah, up to 4 weeks, I'd say.
Lovely, thank you. And lastly, someone's asked, how do you prepare fabric for your botanical bundles using petals, etc. in the fabric? So yeah, how do you prepare it?
So that's also really similar with the rust dyeing technique. So I would lay the fabric out. It's always quite helpful if the fabric's a little bit wet as well. So before this process as well, you're going to make sure that you're mordanting your fabrics with the alum or whichever you choose to sort of experiment with. And then afterwards, you're going to get your piece of fabric after you've dried it out. You can lay it out flat and then sprinkle the different ingredients on top that you want to experiment with. Sometimes you could just do like a scrap piece of fabric with just petals, one with just leaves, and then you roll that up and then you tie that up with some string as well. And then you leave it to steam. So you don't want it to be submerged in water, but you want to make sure there's a lid on it so all the steam is coming up. And I would leave that for about 10-15 minutes and you'll see all the colours start to come out.
Lovely, that's great, thank you. And just to add that on that, I know Mia did a workshop with us last summer, and that actually would be found on the Anyway YouTube channel and on our Take Your Place channel. So if any of you are really interested in following that, Mia will actually do it. It's like an hour long or an hour and a half, isn't it? Taking you through that step by step. So if you want to do that, try have a look on our channel, and if you can't find it, just email us. We're going to give you some contact details just as I wrap up now, so you're more than welcome to email and ask about where you can find that YouTube video. Lovely. So I'm just going to finish up now. So I just want to remind you that we have a couple more talks across our Ignite series. So these have covered a huge range of subjects, from advice on choosing a university and career talks on TV, animation, games, fashion, photography and textile design, giving you an insight into lots of different areas that your creativity could take you and the many different jobs that exist. So if you haven't already, you can book your website and we'll send you some links in the chat now as I go through. So yeah, if there were a couple that you were interested in but have missed, the recordings are available. Also, to get an idea of the range of creative careers out there, you might also want to look at our Your Creative Future booklet. That's a really good resource about when you take a degree in a creative subject, actually what pathways that could open up to you. And also, if include a number of our free activities around portfolio advice, creative careers, a Q&A with our current students. We have a link for that as well. One more thing to mention is our Beyond the Frame competition, which is currently open, and this year's theme is community. So we'll put another link about how you can enter and further details on that. And following up about the workshops, we'll also put a link from Mia's website as well, as she offers bespoke workshops. And then lastly, if you have a few moments, if you could fill out the feedback form that you're sent, it's really useful for us when reflecting on these sessions. And also you'll be entered into a prize draw for a Anyway chili bottle. So lastly, if you have any other questions around the series, or would like to suggest another creative area that you would be interested in finding out more about, please email us at student.recruitment@nua.ac.uk. And lastly, we'll hang around for a few moments in case there are any final questions. But otherwise, thank you, Mia, for sharing your story with us today, and thank you to everyone who is joining. So yeah, like I said, we'll hang on a bit. Hopefully my colleague Emma has put on the links in the background. It looks like it's, sorry, my Zoom has currently frozen, so I cannot see what she's put, but hopefully she has. And lastly, if anyone has any more questions after this, Mia, are they able to email us and we can filter them to you, or they can follow you like you said?
Yeah, I'm more than happy. They can either email me, or if they've got Instagram, they're welcome to drop me a message if they've got any questions as well.
That's great. Lovely. Thank you. So I think that's all. I'm going to ask Emma, if you're there in the background, if you're able to close the meeting for us, that would be great. Just because.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
I've just got one quick question for you, Mia. If people wanted to know a bit more about you, what is the best platform to contact you on? Is that your Instagram?
Yeah, I'd say Instagram's best because it's got a link to my website and everything on there as well.
What is it on Instagram? The handle for that is in the chat, so you should be
able
to
it's Mia Sylvia.
Yeah. Well, yes, I
Brilliant.
will end the meeting now.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you everyone for your time, and thank you, Mia.
More than welcome. Thank you everyone for joining. Bye.